In the wild, survival is the ultimate test, but for this bald eagle, it seemed like the end had come. Shot by a poacher, left for dead, and with no beak to survive, it seemed like no one would ever rescue her. But what happened next? But before we start our story, smash the like button, make sure to subscribe, and hit the notifications bell so you won't miss any new stories. The eagle lay on the ground, injured and crying for help. There seemed to be no hope of anyone finding her, but what happened next will melt your heart. Eagles are powerful birds of prey. They are evolved and built for surviving any kind of situation in the wild. One of their most powerful assets is their beak. It doesn't just help these birds catch and eat their prey, but it is also a vital part of their feather grooming process. Can you imagine what an eagle would have to face without a beak? This was the case for a bald eagle named Beauty, who found herself at the unfortunate end of a poacher's gun. Beauty was gliding through the sky on a scorching afternoon when she perched on a tree to rest and look around. What happened next changed her life forever, but not in a good way. One minute she was sitting on the tree, searching for her next meal, and the next minute she was on the ground, slowly dying. A poacher had spotted her and shot at her. The bullet took her down instantly, brutally tearing off most of her beak. Eagle hunters are notorious for either killing these birds for sport or capturing them to own them illegally. The poacher must have thought Beauty was dead and left, feeling proud of his accomplishment. The poor eagle, however, was still in terrible pain, and her cries could be heard from miles away. Although she was lucky not to have died, her situation was still tragic, because a broken beak would be nearly impossible to recover from. The chances of her surviving without some form of intervention were slim to none. But thankfully the intervention did come, and it came in the form of an animal rescue group that happened to spot her a few days after the incident. The group was walking through the woods when they heard rustling coming from a patch of grass. They stopped, paying close attention, and the noise grew louder. They followed the sound, and when they finally reached the source of the noise, they couldn't believe their eyes. It was the strangest bird they had ever seen, a bald eagle with almost no beak. The poor thing clearly had little energy left, and even her squawks were growing quieter and weaker. They knew they had to help, so they immediately scooped her up and took her to a place where she could be nursed back to good health. During the journey to the shelter, they all wondered what kind of person could do this to an animal. Unfortunately, poachers liked to hunt in that area, and there was nothing they could do to prevent it. As soon as the rescuers brought Beauty in, the volunteers at the nonprofit group Birds of Prey Northwest swung into action. They knew the poor bird had been starving, and they couldn't possibly determine how long she had been like this. Knowing she couldn't feed herself, the volunteers had to find an alternative way to get food into her. They decided to use a small tube with a liquid mixture of nutrients. The rescuers and volunteers were delighted to see that the bird was very receptive to the food. She must have been incredibly hungry. When the other volunteers at the shelter heard about what happened to the eagle, they were all heartbroken. This was why they worked in places like this, because these beautiful birds didn't deserve this kind of unkind treatment. They named the bald eagle Beauty and rallied around her to help her recover. A vet examined Beauty and told the group she was going to be all right. Beyond the broken beak, he also pointed out that it was good the rescuers had found her before she starved to death. The volunteers continued nursing the injured bird and feeding her via tubes. As the bald eagle grew stronger, they switched to hand-feeding her with forceps to the delight of everyone at the nonprofit shelter. Beauty was regaining her strength and was up and about in no time. The team, however, was concerned that her beak showed no signs of healing. After a while, they had to come to terms with her new reality. This meant one thing: Beauty would never be able to feed herself again. She would not survive in the wild on her own. Beauty would have to adjust to life at the shelter without a beak. If she developed symptoms of depression or refused the food provided by the volunteers, she would have to be put down. That was unless a miracle happened. In an unexpected turn of events, however, Beauty got her miracle. Her specialist, Jane Fink Cantwell, could not bear the thought of this bird being euthanized or living a recluse life. She strongly believed that the eagle was saved for a higher purpose. The fact that she hadn't died from the injury or starvation before they found her meant that she was meant to survive and thrive despite it all. Jane scheduled a meeting with mechanical engineer Nate Calvin of Kinetic Engineering Group and other scientists to share her idea. Sure, it sounded crazy, but with the right team, they could save Beauty. Jane wanted them to create a prosthetic beak for the bird. Together with Nate Calvin, a team of engineers, and a dentist, Jane was able to bring her dream to life. They spent weeks planning, measuring, and making adjustments until they came up with the design for a nylon polymer beak that would be the perfect replacement for the eagle's broken one. Calvin began developing the new beak using a 3D modeling program. When the design model was ready, he manufactured it using a 3D printer. The new beak came out beautifully, and the team couldn't wait to see it on Beauty. The next day, they got ready to attach the new beak. First, they attached a metal mount that would fit into the beak and hold it firmly in place. Then they tried attaching the new prosthetic itself. On the first attempt, it didn't fit perfectly. Some measurements were off by a few millimeters, and the team had to make adjustments. They quickly tweaked it and tried again. They were getting closer, but it still wasn't quite perfect. Still, resilient in their resolve, they fixed a few things and tried again. This time, after the third attempt, everyone on the team screamed in unison. The beak fit perfectly and stayed put. Beauty squealed in delight, and this warmed the hearts of everyone in the room. They were all grinning from ear to ear, glad to see the bird return to her full glory. All the hard work was worth it when they saw how happy Beauty was with her new beak. Sure, it would never be a complete replacement for her natural beak, but it was the closest they could get her to being whole again. Let us know what you think in the comments section. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.